Good morning, everybody. Pastor Rick here, Broadman Baptist Church. This is the Broadman Word for April 26, 2021. What a beautiful day it is, and I hope you're having a wonderful day in the Lord so far. I wanted to talk to you today about not freaking out and trusting God in our daily circumstances. You know, we have a situation in the Bible to point to where Daniel and some of his friends have been taken from their land, physically taken captive, and yanked away to Babylon. And not only that, forced to work in the palace of the king who had orchestrated the demise of their homeland. And then they were forced to undergo training in the ways of the palace. So pretty much everything that they knew, everything that they thought was important, family, friends, home, culture, lifestyle, was being assaulted. And upon arriving, Daniel and his friends were even given pagan names. They were stripped of their identity. This would be a seriously concerning situation for pretty much anybody. They weren't even allowed to be who they were born to be. They were forced to carry different names. And on top of it all, as workers in the palace, they were able to have access to some pretty good food, but it was the king's food, and it wasn't good for them according to their dietary laws or what Daniel and his friends would have been used to eating, and definitely better than what the rest of their Hebrew friends were being fed. So Daniel asked simply that he and his friends be allowed to eat nothing but vegetables and water for 10 days and to see if they could maintain their health and their productivity just like everybody else, but not eat this food that they found objectionable, that they knew God did not want them to eat. And so they received that permission. And of course, after 10 days, they were even healthier than the other folks that were there. They decided that at this moment, this overwhelming moment where every circumstance you could think of, their very geographical position, not in their homeland, their names being stripped from them, their freedoms being under the dictates of another king, and now even assaulting their dietary habits. Everything was pretty much taken from them, and all they did was trust God to first provide the opportunity and then to fulfill their health and take care of them so that they could at least hang on to this one thing. It's a very intriguing story where Daniel and his friends did not have to eat the rich food and wine of the king and thus maintain some sort of a relationship with honoring God. They could have very easily freaked out in that situation. There was a lot of very concerning things happen. But they didn't. They knew that God would be with them in this situation, no matter how serious it was. And so it wasn't a situation for them to be frantic about. It wasn't a situation for them to freak out. It was a situation for them to put their faith in God and to realize who they were, no matter what name, no matter what king, no matter what circumstance, they were still God's children and thus under his protection. Another time, Daniel was in very much more severe trouble, and Nebuchadnezzar actually threatened to kill Daniel, and in fact threatened to kill all the wise men of the palace if they weren't able to interpret his dream for them. This would have been a situation of extreme concern. Kings back then had total authority, and Nebuchadnezzar was not shy about killing people. And so Daniel's very life and the life of all of his friends in the palace and anybody he had gotten to know, all the wise men were on the hook here to possibly be killed. Daniel doesn't panic. Daniel doesn't freak out. Instead, he petitions God for wisdom, and as Daniel declared of God, the power and wisdom are his. So Daniel's understanding of the situation could have led to panic, could have led to freaking out, could have led to some irrational actions to try to not be killed. But instead, he realized who he was, trusted in God and God's promises of provision, and knew that if he petitioned God for wisdom and a way through in this situation, that it would be provided, and in fact, it was. In fact, throughout his captivity, Daniel continued to seek out God and to be his best in God despite any conflicts he faced, any circumstance that presented himself. So what I want you to think about today is in our own troubles, we should follow that example. We should make the situation better by taking it to God, not trying to handle it ourselves, definitely not panicking or freaking out, but come to the situation positionally, understanding who you are as a child of God, understanding who God is in his power and his promise to provide and protect you, and then rest in that as a way through the time of trouble. In so, you can have a measure of peace during the trouble, and then you can have a serious moment of spiritual maturity, reflection, fulfillment when the trouble passes and you come to realize that God was there. God did pull you through. And in fact, he is the God who he says he is. So be a Daniel. Don't freak out. Don't understand the world as the circumstances that come to you from a worldly perspective. Understand the circumstances that come to you from the world from a positional place, understanding yourself as a child of God, who God is and what he can do, and then take it to him, not anywhere else. Hey, listen, I love you. I hope you have a marvelous day in the Lord, and I will talk to you next time.